everybody. So this should be coming to you on Thursday. Hoping everybody is up and fit and well and feeling awake. I'm actually feeling a little bit chilly. I can't believe it. It's just started to snow here. I live near Sacromonte, which is the village on the hill that we can see from the school playground. And it's starting to snow. I can't believe it. Yesterday, I was out doing a bit of painting in the afternoon and was feeling that my top of my arm might have been getting a bit sunburnt. And today it's snowing. What's going on? It's a strange world. Anyway, right, let's get started. Oh yeah, yesterday we had another cut-off, didn't we? I don't know what's happening. So if it happens again today and it cuts off when I've kind of nearly finished, don't worry, I'll just do a finishing off video like I did yesterday. Okay, I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully it won't happen again. Right, so wait. So on your program today, you should find that it asks you to refer to this sheet, a sheet that I've copied in from this book, and your sheet's called grams, kilograms, or tons. Okay, and there's no surprise there. And it reminds you at the top about the links of thousands of grams to make 1 kilogram and 1,000 kilograms to make 1 ton, which we talked about in quite a bit of detail yesterday. So quite simply, all you've got to do is, if you have the actual sheet, cut out all the different objects and imagine that this is like a normal coin, a normal sized caterpillar, a normal sized hippopotamus, and so forth. By the way, when it says a £1 coin, a £1 coin in the UK is about the same size and feels about the same weight as a €1 coin. Okay, so that's not to confuse anybody. There's nothing else that's peculiar there. Okay, and a bit like your Intermath exercise from yesterday, the idea is to think, if you were going to weigh it and express its weight, say, oh, I think it's about 7, would that be 7 grams, 7 kilograms, or 7 tons? Okay, so like yesterday, again, you don't need to give the number, but you have to decide which would be the most suitable unit of measurement used for measuring each of these objects. Would it be best expressed in grams, or in kilograms, or in tons? Very similar to yesterday. Okay, if you can't print off the sheet, absolutely no problem. You could just get a piece of paper, draw out the columns, or even just write the column headings, grams, kilograms, and tons, and underneath each of those, just list which you think would go where. If you want to do the drawings, do the drawings. If you want to do the writing, do the writing. And it also says add another item to each box or to each column. So feel free to put in your own items. Okay, if you want to, you could do mainly your own items, your own ideas, rather than these ones, as long as you are thinking about what is a suitable unit of measurement, the best unit of measurement for the item that you're referring to. Sometimes you could go one way or the other, but there's no way that all 3 would be best. Okay, 2 at the most, and probably 1. Right, so that's that part. Then you're asked to carry on with your heritage project today. So I have no idea how they're coming on. Nobody has put anything up on the Padlet yet, which is, remember, it's got its own page, the heritage page. It's not the same as our working wall. I'm not surprised there's nothing there yet, because I would be very surprised if you'd finished. So I look forward to seeing those maybe next week. If something goes up at the end of this week, then fantastic, but there is no rush. Can you hear the dogs going mad outside? They're not mine. They're very noisy. Yeah, so I'm really interested to see what's going to come up. I'm presuming that we're going to hear something about Spanish traditions and Greek. And what else might we see? I'm really looking forward to reading those. Great, okay. If you want an idea, remember, as to how you might want to lay it out, I put my heritage project about Stonehenge on the Padlet, just for you to see as an example. Okay. And And then moving on to muscles for today. So you are asked, you don't have to write anything down for this one. Your job for today is to see if you can think of and then start to practice, see how it might feel, an exercise, or maybe more than one exercise, that really works without hurting yourself, a particular muscle or group of muscles, okay? So quite simply, you know, if you were thinking about doing, let's say, some squats, here we go, I bet I can't do this one here. Maybe if I angle this down. So squats, oh, that's not going to work, is it? That's not going to work. Here we go, disaster of the day pending is when you squat down like this and you feel a lot of pressure on your muscles here, on your thighs, okay? On the diagram from yesterday, they were called your thigh muscles, but another muscle word that we can use for those are your quadriceps, sometimes called quads. So doing those kind of squat muscles work the quads, yeah? If you were doing some kind of press up, okay, that would be working your biceps and your triceps. Okay, also works your leg muscles to some degree. So without giving you ideas, because I want you to come up with your ideas, they might be exercises that you already know, maybe you practice them at a sports club, or they might be exercises that you've seen and you think you could use or do an adaptation. Just have to be really careful that you don't strain anything. So you don't want to work a muscle so hard that it ends up hurting, okay? Because nobody is going to pronto soccorso this week or this month, and stay away from hospital. So be careful with yourself and see what you can come up with. And then the idea is that on Friday for your work, you can practice those exercises. And if anybody has been able to put a photograph or an explanation up on the Padlet working wall, you can have a look at those and see if you can copy somebody else's exercises. Now, whilst we're talking about exercises, I came across at the beginning of the week a YouTube link. It's called PE with Joe. Now, in the UK, PE is what we call our sports lessons. The P stands for physical and the E stands for education. Okay, so in the UK, when we have sport, we call it PE, doing PE. And this guy, he's a workout guy, has put up on YouTube some exercise routines, especially for children, because also in the UK, children aren't going to school. So instead of doing their PE lessons at school, they can tune in on YouTube to this guy called Joe Wicks and do a routine with him. So my family and I tried it out this morning, and oh my goodness, it's really good fun. He doesn't stop talking, so you'll feel at home. We got really sweaty. It was a really good workout. It lasts about 20 minutes. You need a good space to do it in, otherwise you end up like banging your knee against the wall or risk kicking over the television or whatever you've got him coming out of you at. So be careful, find a good space, check if it's all right for you to do it, and have a go. Really, really good fun. And he refers to certain muscles as well, which might give you some good ideas for your muscle program. So he talks about your abs. So your abs are your abdominal muscles, your tummy muscles, okay? He also talks about quads, the quadriceps. Well, he did today for the Wednesday one. You can have a look at those. And he's live on YouTube at 10 o'clock Italian time, 10 o'clock in the morning, every school day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He's not doing it at the weekends. So you could ask at home if you would be allowed to hook up with that either at 10 o'clock in the morning, or you can watch it later and join in with it later. Okay, so that's a good idea. It gives you some inspiration for your muscle exercises yourself, and it's a great thing to do anyway. I think you'll really enjoy it. Good. Okay, so that was that. And then L1, you've got some reading to do. You've got the rest of the chapter of, I think it's chapter 3, isn't it, that you're on? You've got the rest of that chapter to do, then ready for some questions the following day, but just reading for Thursday. Right, so talking of reading, can you believe it? We are up to the last chapter of Stig of the Dump. It's a long chapter, so we'll split it up probably into 3 parts, I think, 2 or 3 anyway. We'll see how we go. Chapter 9. It is the last chapter, isn't it? Let me check. Yeah, it's the last chapter, chapter 9, and it's called The Standing Stones. Now, if you think you've heard that phrase before, standing stones is a general term for those great big monoliths, those big stones that we saw when we looked at pictures of Stonehenge and other stone circles, and that were built by prehistoric man in the UK and other parts of Europe. Okay, so let's see how all of that is going to link together with Barney and Stig. Chapter 9, The Standing Stones. Oh, Barney has just fallen out of the tree, hasn't he? I was just thinking, what's just happened? So Barney's just fallen out of the tree. For a moment, Barney's brain bounced back to the first time he had fallen down the chalk cliff and met Stig. Then he opened his eyes and saw, not the face of the cliff with daylight at the top, but the pattern of beech boughs through which the full moon looked down at him. Then there was a rustle of branches, and he could see Lou clambering down towards him. She fell off the last low bough and ran to where he was lying. "Barney," she was saying, "are you all right, Barney?" He sat up. "Of course I'm all right," he said. "I'm a bit scratched, that's all. Why didn't you stay up there if you didn't want to be caught?" "I thought you were hurt, or I would have done," said Lou, looking around anxiously. Shadowy figures were moving towards them through the wood. One of them, with tousled head, skin skirt, and a flint spear, came into the moonlight patch. Lou drew away from it, but Barney knew who it was. "Hello, Stig," he said. "What are you doing here?" Stig's teeth flashed in the moonlight, and then he looked curiously at Lou. "Oh, this is my sister." "This is my sister Stig," said Barney. Sorry, I've read that wrongly, haven't I? Let me start again. "Oh, this is only my sister Stig," said Barney. "Is this really Stig?" whispered Lou. "Yeah, of course," said Barney. "It's my friend Stig." "Oh," said Lou. I think now she's actually realising at long last that Stig does exist. "Oh," said Lou. Good evening, Mr. Stig." Stig merely grinned again in a friendly way and said nothing. "Doesn't he speak English?" whispered Lou. "No," replied Barney. "What does he speak then? Latin, French, German?" "I don't know," said Barney. "We can try them." But Lou didn't seem to be able to remember anything suitable to say to a savage spearman in a moonlit wood, so she said nothing. Meanwhile, other figures had appeared from the shadows and were standing round in a circle watching them. Stig made a few strange sounds, and they lowered their weapons. Then an argument broke out, with a lot of waving of arms towards the camp and pointing of fingers at Barney and Lou. Finally Stig smiled at them, held out his 2 hands to them, and made ushering movements. "I think we're invited to their party," said Barney. They moved off through the wood, in a silence that was broken by a barking and whining, and there in the dark was Dinah, jumping around on the end of her string. Lou ran up to her. "Oh, poor Dinah," she said. "Did we leave you in the dark?" "It's all right, Dinah. It's only Barney's friend Stig and other nice gentlemen." Dinah didn't seem at all too sure about the other nice gentleman and stood there growling in her throat until Stig came up and said something. and then she actually licked his hand. That's funny, Lou whispered. Dinah seems to know Stig. Well, why not? Said Barney. She probably meets him when she goes hunting for rabbits. You know, in the old days, I mean, when things are usual. They were on a forest track now, so narrow that they had to go in single file and not talk. But soon they came out from the edge of the wood onto the bare top of the hill, and now the women and bigger children who had not dared go into the dark wood ran up to stare at them. I don't suppose they've ever seen anything like us, Lou whispered. Barney took a look at Lou in the bright moonlight. Well, I don't know, he said. You can't see yourself, Lou, but you don't look much different from them except that you've got light hair. Lou felt her tangled hair and looked at her ripped shorts, and then looked at Barney with his legs all smeared with green from the bark of the tree. You don't look very different yourself either, she said. They were walking over the smooth turf towards the cluster of huts. The armed tribesmen were on each side of them, and it was difficult for them to feel sure whether they were prisoners or guests. As they came near the huts, Lou said, I thought Stigs were cavemen. Yeah, they are. Well, my friend Stig is anyway, said Barney. Well, what have they got huts for then? Asked Lou. Barney thought for a moment as they passed the huts. They were not much more than shelters, a few long branches tied together at the tops, thatched with leaves and bracken. Perhaps they're cavemen on holiday, he said. There was a holiday feeling about the tribe. They were sitting round the fires from which there came smells of roasting meat. The men were together in groups. The women were looking after the meat on the spits or holding sleeping babies. Barney looked at a group of boys who were rolling and wrestling on the ground and whispered, Do you think we'll be allowed to play with them? Better not, Lou whispered back. We'll have to say, how do you do to whoever's giving the party first anyway, won't we? She tried to comb her hair with her fingers, but Barney, after taking a few leaves and twigs out of his, decided it wasn't worth trying. They passed into the circle of firelight, and the crowd, who had been talking amongst themselves quite quietly before, fell silent, and everyone was looking at them. They walked in silence round the edge of the circle. Barney heard a very small whisper from Lou. Remember when we were bridesmaids and you were a page at the wedding? He did remember, and the feeling was about the same as when they had walked into the church with the bride and everybody was staring at them. But this time, they were the most important people in this procession. On the other side of the circle was a group of older men, and in the middle there was a figure sitting on a tree trunk. As they went nearer, they could see that he had white hair, very bright black eyes, and was dressed in some very silky fur, with necklaces and bangles made from animals' teeth. They didn't need to be told that this was the chief of the tribe. Barney felt the black eyes boring into him, and then suddenly all the rest of the party, that means everybody else that was there, fell flat onto the ground. Lou, what happened? He whispered, very small. They've all fallen down. And then he saw that Lou was trying to curtsy, which looked a bit silly with bare legs and torn shorts, and he thought it might be a good idea to bow, just like we do in our country dancing. The chief, or king, or whoever he was, seemed satisfied with his touch-the-toes bend and Lou's contortions. That's a word for meaning when you bend yourself into all sorts of strange shapes, you contort yourself. So Lou looked like she was contorting herself. And a smile appeared on the chief's face. In fact, Barney thought he was going to laugh. But then the king looked stern again and barked a short question at Stig, who had now stood up again. It must have meant, "What on earth have you got there, Stig?" And Stig began to speak. Barney was amazed. He thought of all the time he had spent with Stig when they'd hardly said a word to each other, though they had understood each other well enough. And here was Stig making a speech like somebody on the radio. It sounded wonderful, but he didn't understand a word of it. "What's he saying?" whispered Lou. "I think he must be saying how we came here," said Barney. "Well, how did we come here?" Lou whispered again. "You know," said Barney. "I jolly well don't know," said Lou quite crossly. "That's why I want to know what he's saying." Yeah, it would be interesting, thought Barney, as the speech went on and on. At one point, Stig would wave his spear towards the North Star, and at another he would thump himself over the heart and then slap Barney on the back. "I think he's saying that I'm his friend," said Barney. "It's a jolly good thing you are," muttered Lou. Barney felt proud. Stig stopped. There was a silence as the chief seemed to think for a while. Then he rose to his feet. He spoke in a strong, majestic voice, turning his head first to Lou and Barney, and then to one side of the assembled tribe, and then to the other. He raised his arms to the stars. He waved his hand at the moon. He placed both hands over his heart, and then seemed to be blessing the children and the rest of the tribe. "I think he's friendly too," whispered Barney. The chief had finished and there was silence again. Everyone seemed to be looking at Barney and Lou, and an awful thought came into Barney's mind. "Lou," he whispered in silence, "I think it's our turn to make a speech." "Well, go on then," said Lou. "I don't know their language." Excuse me. Excuse me. That wasn't part of the story. That certainly wasn't the speech. "I don't know their language." "I thought you didn't," said Lou unkindly. "Well, you'll have to do it in English then." "I don't know what to say," said Barney, quite sure that whatever happened, he wasn't going to make a speech. "Lou, you do it." "Why should I?" "Because you're good at talking. Go on," said Barney. He could see that Lou wasn't sure whether to be pleased or not at this remark, but it felt as if the silence had gone on for hours. Lou looked around desperately, took a deep breath, and started. "Mr. Chairman, Headmistress, ladies and gentlemen." Oh, golly, that's not right. Lucky you can't understand English. "It is with great pleasure that I come here today to present the prizes to you. Remember, girls and boys, that school days are the best days of your life. We can't all win prizes, but—" "Go on, Lou," said Barney. "That sounds really good." "But—" Then she changed. "I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. It droppeth like the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath." So if all this is sounding really bananas to you, Lou is just trying to remember speeches that she's heard. So she's thinking maybe what somebody has said in school at a big special meeting. She's remembering a famous quote that was said in Roman times that she must have had to learn at school, and she's now just repeating it off. And in a moment, she's going to launch into some random poetry because she thinks it sounds important, and that hopefully the tribesmen amongst her will think that she's saying something very important to them, even though they can't understand the actual words. Excuse me, I now have a runny nose. Excuse me. That's all that sneezing. Excuse me. Right, so back to Lou and her important sounding but very difficult to understand speech. I don't think Barney can understand it either. Where were we? I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. It droppeth like the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. Once more into the breach, dear friends, once more. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that scratch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the Vorpal Tum-Tum tree. How does it go, Barney? Oh, you're doing really well, Lou, exclaimed Barney. Poetry and everything. Christmas is coming, said Lou, getting the hang of it, and spreading out her arms to the audience. The geese are getting fat, she declaimed, pointing at the moon. Please, she begged, holding out her hand towards the moon, put a penny in the old man's hat. And she finished with her hand on her heart. Lou, that was super, said Barney. I wish I'd done it now. Well, you can next time, said Lou, but it seemed to have worked. The chief smiled at them and waved them to sit down near him. Then he looked at Dinah, standing rather unhappily beside Lou on the end of her string. Just realised there was a picture here of Lou giving his speech. There you go. She was very clever. Dinah, okay. He motioned to Lou to bring the strange, tame animal towards him, and Lou led the dog up and said, Shake hands with the nice chief, Dinah. Dinah didn't feel like raising a paw, but the chief gently stroked her back and her ears, and then ran his hand over the skin he was wearing and said something in his strange language. I think he must be saying what nice fur Dinah's got, said Lou, very pleased because she had brushed it such a lot lately. He's probably saying what a nice coat it would make for him, said Barney. But Lou just said, Oh, Barney, don't, and pulled Dinah to her side. They sat at the side of the royal party and waited, and they had a strange feeling that everyone else was waiting too, waiting for something special. The tribesmen were just sitting around, talking in low voices, and sometimes everyone stopped talking together and just listened. And the chief seemed to have his eyes fixed on the mist and fog at the bottom of the valley. Okay, we'll stop there. And I suspect tomorrow we'll find out what it is they all seem to be waiting for. Right, so we don't seem to have cut off yet, hurrah. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. I know in the meantime you are going to be working out using those muscles, using your abdominals, using your shoulder muscles, using your biceps and your triceps, using your quads, your calves, and always, I know, your jaw muscles will be going 10 to the dozen. Okay, I shall see you tomorrow. Bye.